As an American living abroad, watching the United States from a distance can sometimes seem kind of strange. What once was normal for me now seems bonkers. But the most insane thing for an American who's living abroad to watch is America's insane amount of gun violence.
The investigation into California's fourth mass shooting in a week. This one in a Los Angeles neighborhood.
How is it that this very successful nation that seems capable of doing anything is just helpless when it comes to gun violence? Other countries who have very low gun violence have offered advice. Australia's like, we've got a solution. And Singapore and Japan are like, we know what you should do. And the UK and Iceland are all like, hey, America, be more like us. And America's like, you just don't get us. Here's the thing about America. You can give her advice. You can show her statistics. You can tell her how the gun violence in your country plummeted after you took away all the guns. But America doesn't want to hear it because she's got an amendment, the Second Amendment, and it's very dear to her heart. She's never giving it up.
From my cold, dead hands.
What he said. But what if the solution to America's gun problem didn't lie in Australia or Singapore, but in a small nation in the heart of Europe? I'm talking about a country fighting the tyranny of a bureaucratic overlord. Fighting against tyranny. How do you like the sound of that, America? Strike a chord? Stick with me then. Now, I know that tempers run hot when we talk about guns, which is the exact thing we don't want when we're around guns. And this country I'm going to tell you about, they've got a lot of guns. In fact, this country made the right to defend yourself with a gun part of their constitution. Not 200 years ago when the fanciest weapon around was a musket. They enshrined this in their constitution in 2021. That country is the Czech Republic. Now, if you're a subscriber to this channel, you know that the Czech Republic is a relatively new country, but their history is very old, as is their need to defend themselves. The Czechs are no stranger to guns. In fact, they gave the pistol its name, the pistola. The pistola, an early hand cannon, was used as early as 1420 in the Hussite Wars, making its way through German and then French to the English term pistol. 100 years later, when the cities and the nobles were trying to determine who held what rights, the right to bear arms was made universal, and it stayed that way for 500 years. During World War II, when the Nazis occupied the Czech lands, they took away the right to bear arms except in the case of hunting, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you're trying to occupy a nation, you take away the sharp objects and hand cannons. Then under communist rule, the only people who were really allowed to have guns at home were the people deemed loyal to the regime. And they even had a secret list of people who were not. Again, this makes sense. When you're trying to control people, you take away their guns. So when Americans get their panties in a bunch about the need to arm themselves against tyranny, in case the British come back, the Czechs are like, yeah, we're familiar with tyranny. Now, before we get into the whole Czechs defending themselves against tyranny, I want to tell you how I got into this topic at all. So Hansa and I are big fans of Nordic noir series, and we are watching this one from Iceland with an unarmed cop chasing a criminal. And in order to access the gun that was locked in her car, she had to call the local police station, swear to them that her life was in danger, and they remotely popped the box and let her have the gun. And we were like, weird and super fascinating. And so we wanted to share this series with our friends and family back home, but they couldn't access it because it wasn't on Netflix in America. So that's why I recommended that they download Nord VPN, who is also the sponsor of today's video. So a VPN is a very useful tool for anyone who goes online. It allows you to connect to the internet, but via a different country. So if they wanted to watch a Nordic noir show or a Czech show, they could just sign on to NordVPN from the Czech Republic. It's so easy. All you do is open it and click Quick Connect and then choose what country, what IP address you want to log on from. And with one account, you can access up to 6 devices. So Hansa and I are both covered. And best of all, it's super cheap. When you click on the link below, you can get a 2-year plan with an exclusive deal, plus 1 bonus month free and a bonus gift, all to celebrate NordVPN's 11th birthday. And if you decide that you don't use it as much as I do, it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you use the internet and you don't have a VPN, clicking on the link below and signing up for NordVPN is a great way to help me support this channel. So thank you. Where were we? Oh yes, the Czechs standing up to tyranny. Which brings me to the Czech Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms, which is very much like the American Bill of Rights, the very bill that guarantees America's right to bear arms. In 2021, the Czechs amended this charter, and therefore their constitution, to include the right to defend life using arms. So why so recently? I mean, the Nazis are gone, the communists are almost gone. What are the Czechs so afraid of? The Czech Republic is a member state of a little organization called the European Union. There are certain things, not a ton of things, but some things that the European Union can tell its member states that they can do and then they can't do. And the Czechs, much like the Americans, don't like to be told what to do. After a slew of terrorist attacks in Europe in the 2010s, the EU thought, how can we curb these attacks? And they thought stricter gun control laws. Even though a lot of these attacks weren't perpetrated with guns, guns seemed like the easiest target. Pun intended. Czech gun owners, like American gun owners, started to feel regulation creep and wanted a way to guarantee the right to keep their guns before the big bad EU came to take them away. Now, the Czechs already had a Firearms Act on the books that guaranteed them the right to acquire, keep, and bear arms. So why the constitutional amendment? Many legal scholars say that this amendment is really only symbolic, a way to stand up to the EU. But I bring it up to make a point. Both the Czechs and the Americans cared enough about their right to bear arms that they put it in their constitutions. But the Czechs have 7 times less gun violence than the Americans. And that's why the Czech example might be the perfect model for America. One of the most repeated pro-gun arguments in America is guns don't kill people, people kill people. And that banning guns is not the answer because the gun didn't pull its own trigger. The mentally ill teenager shooting up his school pulled the trigger. Or the disgruntled employee who went and targeted his boss, he pulled the trigger. And the Czechs, for the most part, agree. They say you can focus on regulating the weapons or the people. We focus mainly on the people. Focus on the people. This might be the Czechs' secret sauce. What if America stopped focusing on the guns and instead focused on the gun owners? Let's see how the Czechs do that. The Czechs care about gun owners, so they don't want them hurting themselves. So the first pretty basic requirement to own a gun in the Czech Republic is a clean bill of mental health, which you get from your doctor. Mentally ill pilots can't fly planes, and mentally ill people can't own guns. Americans care about the mental health of gun owners too. The overwhelming majority of Americans think gun owners should have a clean bill of mental health. The difference is that in the Czech Republic, you have to get a medical exam before you get a gun. That way, we don't find out about your mental health problems on the evening news after some terrible attack. The Czech doctor will also check your vision and your hearing, which is the same thing they do if you want a driver's license in the Czech Republic. So that seems reasonable. For comparison, in the US state of Georgia, a blind person is allowed to carry a gun in public, and in Texas, a blind person is allowed to go hunting. Next, in the Czech Republic, you need a clean criminal record. This seems obvious. In fact, 83% of American gun owners support universal background checks before you can buy a gun. And if you buy a gun in America through a federally licensed dealer, they do have to do a background check. But only 40% of the guns in America are bought through dealers. If you buy it at a gun show or online or from a private individual, you don't have to have a background check. So if you're a criminal trying to buy a gun, who do you think you buy one from? Unless you're one of those really dumb criminals. Okay, so mental health, criminal background check, both countries are pretty much on board with this, except for the blind hunters. The difference is that the Czech Republic actually makes this a requirement and then enforces this requirement. America's like, meh. It would be good if you didn't have, a murderous past, but just take the gun. Just take it. Now we get to the part that really sets the Czech mentality apart from the American mentality. So Czechs put a lot of emphasis on degrees, certification, licenses. Some say this is left over from the Austro-Hungarian times. But in general, the Czechs want to see some letters before or after your name if you're going to claim to be an expert in something. And they're going to want to see some kind of license to prove that you know how to handle a deadly weapon before they give you one. America is a lot more self-made. We don't always value expertise. We're the cowboys, the Lone Rangers, the self-made billionaires. And you get even more street cred if you drop out of Harvard before you make your billions, because screw the experts. Americans don't need someone's stamp of approval before they brandish a deadly weapon. I mean, that's our God-given right. And the Czechs are like, it would be better if you prove you know how to use the gun. Here's what we do. We give you exam, you pass exam, we give you gun. Chápeš? By the way, did you ever notice that chápeš sounds a lot like capiche? Did you steal that from the Italians? So this multiple choice exam that you have to take to own a gun is not easy. A lot of people try and fail and never even attempt it again. But everyone who wants a gun has to pass this test. You want to go hunting? You have to pass this test. You want to collect guns? You have to pass this test. You inherit a hand cannon from your grandfather? You have to pass this test. I don't actually know if hand cannons are legal anymore. Anyway, you have to answer about 30 questions from 500 possible answers that involve how to operate a gun, what the Czech laws are surrounding guns, how to safely store ammunition. Basically, you just have to prove that you know the laws surrounding guns. The various levels of license require a different percent correct on the exam. So if you just want to collect guns, you have to get a certain amount right. But if you want a permit for a concealed carry, you have to pass almost all of the questions. If you can manage to pass the multiple choice exam, the second part of the exam is a physical test of you using a gun. You have to hit a target 4 times out of 5 with a pistol from 10 meters away, with a rifle from 25 meters away, and you have to prove you know what to do if a certain defect should come up while you're shooting. What to do in an emergency. Good thing to know. Then, once you've passed all of these steps, you are obliged to safely store your gun away from children and away from other people without a license. So how's this working out for the Czechs? Well, as I mentioned, the Czech Republic has 7 times less gun violence than the United States per capita. And here's the crazy thing. In recent years, gun ownership in the Czech Republic has been going up at the same time as gun violence has been going down. We always hear how there are more guns in America than people, and I guess I'm making the argument that it doesn't matter how many guns there are as long as they're only allowed to be in the hands of the people who know how to use them. Which unfortunately brings me to why this would never work in America. Gun culture. So what does gun culture even mean? It's hard to explain to someone who's not from the United States, but a lot of Americans link their identity to their guns. Owning a gun implies other character traits, like patriotism and independence and self-reliance. It means that you are able to protect your family from harm. One author who studies American gun culture calls it honor culture. I have honor because I can defend myself. And if you come for my guns, you're coming for my honor. The Czechs, even Czech gun owners, don't feel like they need a gun to be taken seriously. What I'm trying to say is that while even though guns are constitutionally protected in the Czech Republic, that doesn't mean that they're sacred. What's sacred in that amendment is the life part. It probably didn't take you until this point in the video to realize where my position is on the spectrum of gun rights. I don't own a gun, I don't hunt, I've never shot a gun, I don't understand gun culture. If it was up to me, I'd rather live in a country that didn't have guns. But as an American, and knowing how Americans feel about guns, I know that that's never gonna happen there. Perhaps knowing my bias makes you suddenly numb to any argument I've made in this video. But it shouldn't. When you see how another country, who really values the right to bear arms, manages their own gun laws to the benefit of all of their citizens, you should learn from that. This is what we do as thinking humans on the planet. We say, hey look, that guy's using fire to cook his meat so he doesn't get sick and die. Maybe I should cook my meat too. And then we humans improve. If you like hearing about other things that we can learn from this small country in the heart of Europe, you're definitely going to want to subscribe to this channel. And thanks for watching. Uvidíme se příště. Ahoj.